of white, and as many times I was on remand and in stopover prisons when I was being what you call ghosted, which means that they open the cell door at 2 o'clock in the morning, they throw all your stuff into a couple of pillowcases, they handcuff you and they take you out, put you in a van, and when you finally arrive at another prison, usually 3, 4, 5 hours later, you're in a totally different prison away from the one you were in the day before. It's called ghosting, and they do this for security reasons. I was an escapee. I used to have a yellow leg on my trousers, a yellow arm on my jacket, because when this was seen by prison officers, it meant that you had escaped from prison at some time in your life and you had to be doubly watched. I was a thorn in the backside of the authorities for years and years and years. I was written off as being uncurable, alcoholic, violent, a dreadful character. I was in the Old Bailey in London, armed robbery, possession of firearms and ammunition. I was arrested for murder. I was arrested for attempted murder. I was sentenced for attempted murder. I'd done so many sentences for violence on police, for carrying weapons, for carrying all different types of weapons and such like. My whole life basically was a total, absolute wreck. And yet through it all again, especially when I was in prison, I used to read and try and find out what the answer was to life. I genuinely did want to try and settle down, but the hypocrisy of the churches and the religious companies used to make me upset. I used to think to myself, how can they all say that they are the only way, and yet there's so many different denominations of churches? How can they say there's only one God, and yet one church won't speak to another church? And this always upset me, because in my own heart I did realise that there was a force, a living force, that must have organised all of these things that surround us, all of these beautiful hills and rivers and flowers and trees, all of these beautiful skies, all of these beautiful mountains, all of these beautiful people for that matter. Because in general, most everything that is in front of us is pretty beautiful, but it's only men in their sinfulness and awkwardness that starts to make things wrong. The pride of man's heart is the enemy of God. But of course I'm saying these kind of things now, but at that time I was searching. I was reading books about Zen Buddhism. I was reading books about Krishnamurti. I was reading books by Dr. Paul Brunton, The Hidden Teachings Beyond Yoga. I was reading books about all kinds of religions, Mormons, Joseph Smith and the Mormons, Charles Russell and the Jehovah's Witnesses, all of these religions, all different types of religions, all different types of Indian gurus, all different types of Eastern dervishes, all different types of books of all different walks of life, and yet I was never ever satisfied. I even read a book once called Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance, and that was quite a book as well. But even although I got momentary peacefulness and momentary decent thoughts out of these books, I never had anything that lasted or helped me in any way to change my life. And yet, on one day in 1974, I was living back at Dumfries for a while. I was living with a girl, and I was going over the town. It was February 1974, it was snowing heavily, and I was going over the town to find a man that owed me money. And in my mind I was thinking what I was going to do to him if he didn't have the money. And I passed this little church, and this girl was standing at the top of the steps, and she said to me, "Would you like to come in and hear the gospel?" And I said to her, "No, I wouldn't like to come in and hear the gospel. God doesn't look for my kind of person. I'm an outlaw." I took a few steps further on, and she said behind me, "God loves outlaws, and he died for your soul." I turned round again with the intention of telling her off. I was never very violent against women. I wasn't having